"You're dead weight, Mom. It's time to go." Marcus's words cut through my heart like a knife. I looked at Linda, my daughter, expecting her to intervene, but she just rolled her eyes. "We've already found a place at Green Valley Nursing Home. You're going there today," she said, snatching the keys from my hand. It was my 62nd birthday. This was my house, and they were throwing me out like trash. "But this is my house," I whispered, still in disbelief. "It was your house," Marcus corrected, crossing his arms. "Now it's ours. You're just a burden and useless." I felt my legs tremble, but then I remembered the lottery ticket I'd checked minutes earlier in the kitchen. $47 million. They had no idea what a mistake they were making. That day, I woke before sunrise, with that tightness in my chest that felt like a clenched fist, 62 years old. There was no cake on the table, no coffee brewed to perfection like I used to make for them on normal days. The kitchen was cold, smelling of an open refrigerator and stale bread. Marcus flicked through his phone with his thumb quickly, not looking at me. Linda stirred her spoon in her yogurt, making a metallic sound against the glass. No one said, "Congratulations." Not a wry smile. Just the clock on the wall, ticking, reminding us that time moves on even when we wish it would. "Good morning," I said, my voice coming out lower than I had intended. "Mom, we need to talk," Marcus said, still without looking up. That tone of his, dry, icy, the one I'd known since I was a kid when I decided to be tough just to appear strong. My stomach turned. I sat down slowly, my hands in my lap, my fingers searching for each other like someone praying without realizing it. I noticed the crumbs on the tablecloth, the glass with the mouth mark, the chipped cup I always said I'd replace but never did. Small, ordinary things. But at that moment, everything seemed to warn me that a storm was coming. "About what, son?" I asked. Linda took a deep breath, like someone carrying a heavy cross. I already knew that when she did that, she was going to get stoned. "We've done the math, Mom," she began, leaning her elbow on the table, her face tired, her eyebrows furrowed. "It's hard. Your appointments, your medications, the house, the bills, we're at our limit." Limit. The words circled around in my head like a bee trapped in a window. I wanted to say that I'd always been their limit of patience, their limit of space, their limit of money, their limit of care. I wanted to remember that I was the one who held Marcus's fever all night when he was 6, and that it was my lunchbox that paid for his college education. One less hot lunch for me, one more book for him. But I breathed. That's when I knew it. Something bigger was being triggered, aimed at me. Marcus finally looked at me. His face looked like a closed door. "It's not easy to say this today, but we can't put it off," he said. "We need to make a decision." I looked at the wall calendar. The day's square was marked in red pen. I'd circled it myself. 62. Not because I was expecting a party, I'd already learned not to, but because, deep down, I wanted at least a sincere hug, a warm cup of coffee made by someone else. "Ozzy, thanks for everything, Mom." "What decision?" My voice was firm, despite my heart pounding in my throat. Linda sat up straight in her chair and began talking about numbers, spreadsheets, installments. Her words were cold and tidy, as if I were a phone bill. Cost, expenses, unfeasible. I listened, but I didn't hear everything. I stared at my empty cup, smelling the faded aroma of yesterday's coffee. I wanted to get up and make a fresh pot, just to have something to hold in my trembling hands. I didn't get up. I stayed there, clinging to the silence. "Mom," Marcus repeated, more quietly. "It's best for everyone." Better for whom? I thought. I remembered the blue dress I'd hung up the night before, as an act of foolish hope. I was going to wear it to my birthday lunch, even if it was just me and my plate. "Wait, let me just get more coffee," I said, getting up from the table before Marcus could begin. I needed a few seconds to breathe, to prepare my heart for whatever they were going to say. I walked to the coffee maker on weak legs, feeling their eyes boring into my back. That's when I saw it. The Powerball ticket stuck to the fridge with a little house magnet that Linda had given me years ago when she still loved me. That crumpled piece of paper I'd bought 3 days earlier at the Shell station on Camelback Road when I went to get milk. I always bought 1 ticket a week. It was my little ritual of hope, my silly fantasy that one day life might change. I took the ticket with trembling fingers and felt for my phone in my robe pocket. The drawing had been last night. I vaguely remembered seeing the numbers on TV before bed, but I was so tired I hadn't paid attention. On some impulse I can't explain, perhaps the instinct to postpone what Marcus was going to tell me, I unlocked my phone and typed Powerball results into Google. My eyes scanned the numbers on the screen, 7, 14, 23, 35, 48, and the Powerball 11. I looked at the ticket in my hand, 7, 14, 23, 35, 48, Powerball 11. I read it again and again. My heart started pounding so hard I thought it would explode right there on the cold kitchen floor. All 6 numbers matched perfectly. It couldn't be. I scrolled down the page, fingers shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone. $47 million jackpot for a single winner in Arizona. $47 million. I held on to the sink to keep from falling. I looked at the note again, then at the screen, then at the note. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a mistake. It was real. I was a millionaire. After 62 years of living penniless, sacrificing for my children, working as a nurse until my body gave out, I had just won $47 million. Mom, coffee can wait. Linda's impatient voice brought me back to reality. I quickly folded the note and stuffed it into my robe pocket, my heart still pounding. I took a deep breath and turned to them, holding my empty coffee cup, trying to keep my face neutral. They had no idea what I had just discovered. And in that moment, as I saw the cold, determined expressions on my children's faces, something inside me shifted. I was going to listen to what they had to say. And then I was going to make the most important decisions of my life. I sat down slowly, placed my cup on the table, and waited. The silence was deafening. Marcus got straight to the point, as he always did when he wanted to get rid of something unpleasant. Mom, you're going to a nursing home. It's all arranged." The words came out of his mouth as coldly as someone canceling a magazine subscription. I felt like someone had thrown ice water over me. I blinked several times, trying to figure out if I'd heard correctly. "What?" My voice came out as a hoarse whisper. Linda finally looked up from her phone, but only for a second. "Green Valley Nursing Home. They have a spot available, and you can go today. We've already paid for the first month." She said it with the same tone she'd used to say she'd made a dentist appointment. Emotionless, unremorseful, like she was doing me a favor. But this is my house," I managed to say, feeling my hands begin to shake. "I raised you here. Your father and I bought this house 35 years ago." "It was your house, Mom," Marcus interrupted, emphasizing the tense. "You transferred the deed to me 2 years ago, remember? When you said you wanted to make sure we were safe. Well, now it's my house, our house." He looked at Linda, who nodded in agreement. I remembered how Marcus had convinced me it was best for everyone, that this way they wouldn't have tax problems when I died. To make things easier, he had said, and I, idiot, had trusted him. I'd signed those papers without a second thought, because they were my children, my flesh and blood. "You can't do this," I said, but my voice was weak, lacking conviction. "Yes, we can," Linda replied, now looking directly at me. "Mom, you have to understand. You're a burden to us. We no longer have the time or money to care for you. You're not working anymore. You're living here for free. Your medical bills are getting higher and higher, and honestly," she paused, as if summoning the courage to say what came next, "you're just an expense and no longer useful." The words pierced my chest like bullets. I'm useless anymore. I looked at the girl I'd rocked every night when I had nightmares. The girl I'd made heart-shaped pancakes for every Sunday. The girl I'd worked 2 jobs for to put myself through college. And she was telling me I was useless. "Linda, how can you—" I began, but Marcus cut me off again. Enough drama, Mom. The nursing home van is coming to pick you up at 3 in the afternoon. You have 4 hours to pack your things. Just one suitcase. The room there is small. He stood up and threw a brochure on the table, Green Valley Nursing Home, with pictures of old people smiling fake smiles for the camera. I felt my legs tremble violently. I gripped the edge of the table to keep from falling. I looked at my children, these strangers who used to be my babies, and something inside me broke. But at the same time, something new was born. A cold, crystalline clarity. The note in my pocket felt like it weighed a ton. $47 million. They were throwing me away like trash, unaware that I had just won a fortune. And in that exact moment, looking into those indifferent, cruel faces, I took a deep breath and made a decision that would change everything. I wouldn't tell. I wouldn't say a single word. I would let them throw me out. I would walk out of that house with my dignity in tatters, and then they would see what Dorothy Harrison was capable of. Okay, I said calmly, surprising even myself. I'll pack my things. I got up from the table, my legs still wobbly, but I kept my posture straight. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. I walked to the downstairs bathroom with slow, deliberate steps, locked the door, and leaned against it, taking a deep breath. My hands trembled as I pulled the note from my robe pocket. I stared at those numbers again, needing to be sure I wasn't crazy, that this was real. 7, 14, 23, 35, 48, Powerball 11, $47 million. Carefully, I folded the note into a perfect square. I opened my robe and tucked it into my bra, right next to my heart, the heart they had just shattered without a shred of remorse. The paper felt warm against my skin, as if it were alive, pulsing with all the possibilities it represented. This was my secret, my salvation, my revenge. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. A 62-year-old woman, gray hair, wrinkles around her eyes, hands calloused from a lifetime of hard work. But there was something different now. A gleam in my eyes that hadn't been there 5 minutes ago. Power. I had power, and they had no idea. I washed my face with cold water, fixed my hair, and left the bathroom. Marcus was in the living room, fiddling with his laptop, probably already planning what to do with his mother's room. Linda was still glued to her phone. Neither of them looked up as I passed. Okay, I said for the second time. And my voice was so calm that even I was surprised. There were no screams. There were no tears. There were no pleas. Just 2 words that carried the weight of an irrevocable decision. Marcus lifted his head, brows furrowed. Okay, that's it? He expected resistance, drama, maybe me begging. The confusion on his face was almost comical. That's all, I confirmed. Linda put down her phone and eyed me suspiciously, as if trying to decipher some trick. They glanced at each other, and I saw a flicker of surprise, maybe even disappointment, pass between them. My resignation had robbed them of the pleasure of the fight, the confrontation, of watching me beg. I climbed the stairs for the last time, each step a silent farewell. In my room, no. It wasn't my room anymore, never would be again. I grabbed the old brown leather suitcase from the closet, the one that had accompanied me on every family trip when Marcus and Linda were children. I opened the drawers and chose only the essentials. A few clothes, photos of my late husband Robert, the Bible my mother gave me, the pearl necklace I inherited from my grandmother. I left behind all the gifts they'd given me over the years, generic, loveless, hastily chosen gifts. I left behind the clothes Linda said made me look too old. I left behind the books Marcus thought were a waste of time. I took only what had real value, what held memories of when we were still a real family. I closed my suitcase and walked downstairs for the last time. Marcus and Linda were in the same place, but now they were both watching me as if I were a stranger. I set my suitcase on the floor in the entryway and took the set of house keys from my pocket. The front door key, the garage key, the back gate key. Each represented a part of my life that was being ripped away from me. I walked over to Linda and held out my hand with the keys. You can have the house, I said, looking her straight in the eye. You can have everything. The furniture, the dishes, the pictures on the walls, the memories, it's all yours now. Linda took the keys, and for a split second, I thought I saw something like guilt cross her face. But then she smiled. A small, almost imperceptible smile. But it was there. An expression of victory. She had gotten what she wanted. The house was theirs. The annoying old mother was leaving. Problem solved. That smile was like a punch in the gut, but at the same time, it was exactly what I needed. It gave me strength. It gave me determination. It gave me absolute certainty that the decision I had made was the right one. I grabbed my suitcase, opened the front door, and walked out. I didn't look back, not once, because the Dorothy Harrison who had last entered that house wasn't the same one leaving. I was a woman with $47 million hidden in her bra, and a plan of revenge beginning to form in my mind. The door closed behind me with a final click, and I smiled. I stopped on the sidewalk in front of the house that was no longer mine, heavy suitcase in hand, and grabbed my phone. My fingers trembled as I searched for Powerball Arizona office. I wasn't going to wait another minute. I wasn't going to give them the chance to figure it out on their own and try to manipulate me. I wrote down the address, Arizona Lottery, 4740 East University Drive, Phoenix, just 20 minutes away. I called an Uber and waited across the street, away from the living room window where I knew Marcus was probably watching me. When the car arrived, I quickly got in and told the driver to go straight to the lottery office. The whole ride, I kept my hand on my chest, feeling the ticket there, safe, real. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure the driver could hear it. "Big day?" he asked, looking in the rearview mirror. "The biggest of my life," I replied. And it wasn't a lie. We arrived at the building at 10:47 a.m. It was a discreet building, nothing ostentatious, which somehow calmed me. I paid the fare, grabbed my suitcase, and walked through the glass doors. The receptionist, a young woman with blonde hair tied back in a bun, looked up and smiled. "Good morning. How can I help you?" I walked over to the counter, opened my purse, and pulled the ticket out of my bra. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I think I won. In yesterday's drawing. The receptionist took the ticket carefully, her eyes widening as she checked the numbers on the computer. She went pale. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Wait a moment, please." She picked up the phone and spoke softly, but I could hear, "We need the supervisor. Now, you're the winner." Within minutes, I was ushered into a private room. A man in a gray suit, who introduced himself as Richard Patterson, the lottery's regional director, entered carrying papers upon papers. He was smiling so wide it looked like he'd won. "Mrs. Harrison, it's an honor to meet you. Congratulations. $47 million. He shook my hand enthusiastically. "Now, we'll need to verify your identity, go through some standard procedures, and then you'll need to decide how you want to receive your prize." The next 2 hours were a blur of paperwork, verifications, and signatures. I showed my driver's license and social security card and answered 1,000 questions. Richard explained my options. I could receive it in annual installments over 30 years, or I could receive it all at once, which would result in approximately $28 million after federal and state taxes. "All at once," I said without hesitation. "I want it all now." Richard nodded. A wise decision for someone your age, if I may say so myself. Now, about the publicity. Most states require us to publish the winner's name. In Arizona, unfortunately, it's not possible to remain completely anonymous. My heart sank. But I don't want my name to be used. Not yet. I have complicated family situations. Richard sighed sympathetically. "I understand perfectly, Mrs. Harrison. What I can do is keep your name confidential for as long as possible. We have a processing period of a few days. I can guarantee that your name will not be released to the press immediately, but eventually, by law, it will have to be made public, perhaps in a week or two." 2 weeks, I repeated. It was enough time. Time to do what I needed to do. However, Richard continued, we traditionally take a picture of the winner holding a giant symbolic check. It's for our records and marketing. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but a brilliant idea popped into my head, a malicious and perfectly vengeful idea. I'll take the photo, I said, surprising Richard. But on one condition, you don't release my name along with the photo. Not yet. You can release the photo, but keep my identity secret for now. Richard frowned thoughtfully. That's irregular, but technically possible. We can report it as Phoenix winner without specifying the name, for now. Perfect, I said. And for the first time in hours, I actually smiled. Half an hour later, I stood in a brightly lit room, holding a giant cardboard check that read, Dorothy Harrison, $47,000. Two photographers took dozens of photos. I smiled in each one, a genuine smile, full of triumph. They were going to release these photos. Marcus and Linda would see them on the news, on social media, and they wouldn't know it was me. Not yet. Not until I was ready for the big reveal. After the photos, Richard led me to a small room with a laptop. We'll need your bank account details for the transfer. I hesitated. My joint account with Marcus, he'd see the money coming in immediately. I don't have a suitable account for this, I admitted. Can I open a new one? Absolutely, Richard said. In fact, I strongly recommend that you open a new account at a different bank specifically for this amount. And I suggest you hire a lawyer and a financial advisor before making any major decisions. He gave me a list of lawyers and financial advisors who specialized in large fortunes. I picked up my cell phone and called the first one on the list, a lawyer named Thomas Whitmore. I briefly explained the situation, that I had just won the lottery and needed urgent services. He agreed to meet me in 2 hours at his office. Richard then personally drove me to a nearby bank, First National Bank of Arizona, where I was received like royalty. The manager, a dapper man named Mr. Morrison, took me to a VIP lounge and helped me open a private high-net-worth account in less than 30 minutes. Mrs. Harrison, he said, handing me the shiny new debit card. This account will be subject to strict bank secrecy. No one but you will have access to the information, neither family members nor spouses, unless you specifically authorize it. Perfect, I said, feeling a wave of relief. And no one can trace this. My kids can't find out? Absolutely not. Bank secrecy is federal law. The account is in your name only. I returned to the lottery office with Richard and gave him my new account information. He typed everything into the computer, triple-checked it, and pressed enter. It's done, he said. The transfer will be processed in 3 to 5 business days. You will receive $28.4 million, net of taxes, $28,400,000. The number was so absurd it hardly seemed real. I signed a few more papers, thanked Richard profusely, and left that building a completely different woman than the one who had entered. I stopped on the sidewalk, looked up at the blue Phoenix sky, and finally let the tears flow. Tears of pain, of relief, of anger, of hope. My children had thrown me away, but the universe, in some mysterious way, had given me the tools to turn things around. I left the bank with a thick envelope tucked deep in my purse. Mr. Morrison had been incredibly helpful when I explained I needed immediate cash while I waited for the full transfer. Considering the amount you're expecting, we can advance you $50,000 right now, Mrs. Harrison, he said with a warm smile. $50,000 in crisp, new $100 bills, stacked neatly inside that white envelope. I pulled over to the sidewalk and pulled out my phone. I searched luxury hotels Scottsdale, and the first result made me smile. The Phoenician, a 5-star resort nestled in the Camelback Mountains. The photos showed sparkling pools, lush gardens, and rooms that looked like palaces. Why not? I thought. I hailed a cab, not a regular Uber, but a sleek black cab that looked like the next Dorothy Harrison. The driver, a gray-haired gentleman named Frank, kindly took my battered suitcase. "The Phoenician Resort," I said, and he nodded approvingly. Excellent choice, ma'am. It's the best hotel in Scottsdale. During the 20-minute drive, I stared out the window, watching Phoenix pass by. The streets I knew so well suddenly seemed different, as if I were seeing everything through new eyes. I was no longer Dorothy, the retired nurse counting pennies. Now I was Dorothy, the multi-millionaire. The transformation hadn't yet happened physically, but inside me, something fundamental had shifted. We arrived at the Phoenician, and my heart raced. The resort was even more impressive in person, a majestic structure of beige stone, surrounded by towering palms and elegant fountains. I paid Frank with $100 bill and told him to keep the change. His eyes widened. "Thank you, ma'am. God bless you." I grabbed my old brown leather suitcase, so worn, with faded stickers from decades-old family trips, and walked toward the entrance. The glass doors opened automatically, and I entered the most stunning lobby I'd ever seen. Shiny marble floors, crystal chandeliers hanging from the high ceiling, enormous floral arrangements perfumed the air. Everything screamed luxury, elegance, and wealth. The doorman, a young man in an impeccable uniform, glanced at me and then at my suitcase. I saw his face contort slightly, a subtle expression of doubt, almost disdain. He saw a 62-year-old woman, dressed simply and with a suitcase that had seen better days. Clearly, I didn't look like the type of customer who frequented this place. "Good afternoon," he said with a forced, professional smile. "Can I help you?" I straightened my shoulders and walked straight to the reception desk with the confidence of someone with $28 million on the way. "Good afternoon. I'd like to reserve the presidential suite, please." The receptionist, a man in his early 30s with a badge that read, "Michael Manager," blinked a few times. "The presidential suite?" He exchanged a quick glance with the doorman. "Ma'am, I should inform you that the presidential suite costs $5,000 a night." "I know," I replied calmly, opening my purse, "and I'd like to reserve it for a week. Payment in advance, cash." The silence that followed was delicious. Michael stood completely still, his mouth slightly open. I took the envelope from my purse, opened it, and began counting the $100 bills on the marble counter. 1, 2, 5, 10, 20. The crisp sound of the bills echoed in the quiet lobby. 350 $100 bills. $35,000. "That's $35,000 for the week," I said, pushing the money toward him. "And I'd like all-you-can-eat room service, full access to the spa, and absolute privacy. My name is Dorothy Harrison." The transformation in Michael's demeanor was instantaneous and absolute. His eyes widened. He straightened as if he'd been shocked, and the smile that appeared on his face was genuine this time. "Of course, Mrs. Harrison. It would be an honor to have you with us." He began typing frantically on the computer as another employee appeared out of nowhere to count and verify the money. The porter, who minutes before had looked at me with disdain, now rushed to take my suitcase as if it were made of gold. "Allow me, Mrs. Harrison. I will carry your luggage personally." 15 minutes later, Michael escorted me through luxurious corridors to the top floor of the resort. He opened a pair of carved wooden double doors and invited me in. What I saw took my breath away. The presidential suite was larger than the entire house where I'd raised my children. The main living area had soaring ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows with panoramic views of the Camelback Mountains and the orange sunset just beginning to paint the sky. There was a living room with white leather sofas, a dining room with a table for 8, a full gourmet kitchen, and a private bar. "The master bedroom is this way," Michael said, leading me down another hallway. He opened another door and revealed a room the size of an entire apartment. The king-size bed sat in the center, covered in cloud-like white sheets, with at least 10 perfectly arranged pillows. There was a marble fireplace, a wall-sized flat-screen television, and glass doors leading to a private balcony with a jacuzzi. "The bathroom," Michael continued, opening another door. "It was bigger than my old room. It had a marble whirlpool tub, a shower with 6 different jets, 2 sinks, illuminated mirrors, and bath products from brands I couldn't even pronounce." "It's perfect," I whispered, still processing all the opulence. Wonderful. If you need anything, absolutely anything, just dial 0 on the phone. We're here for you 24 hours a day. Michael bowed, a real bow, and left, closing the door softly behind him. I stood there, standing in the middle of that absurdly luxurious suite, clutching my battered purse. For a moment, I felt like laughing, or crying, or both. I walked slowly to the bedroom, kicked off my worn shoes, and lay down on that king-size bed that felt like it was made of clouds. I sank into the soft pillows and gazed up at the ceiling, where a crystal chandelier reflected the golden sunset light. For the first time in years, perhaps decades, I truly smiled. Not a polite smile, not a forced smile to disguise the pain, but a genuine smile that came from deep within, from the place where I held hopes I thought were dead. I was free. Free from Marcus and his calculated coldness. Free from Linda and her cruel disdain. Free from the house that was no longer my home. Free from the chains of dependence and forced gratitude. I was rich. Not just comfortable, not just secure, but genuinely, absurdly rich. Rich enough to never worry about bills again. Rich enough to live wherever I wanted, however I wanted. Rich enough to make a difference in other people's lives, and they had no idea. Marcus and Linda probably thought I was just arriving at Green Valley Nursing Home, being registered, receiving my tiny room and my institutionalized routine. They were probably already celebrating, planning what to do with Mom's room, dividing up my belongings. The 3 days at the Phoenician were the most peaceful of my adult life. I woke up whenever I wanted, ordered breakfast in my suite, eggs Benedict, fresh fruit, fresh squeezed orange juice. I spent the mornings on the balcony reading the books Marcus always said were a waste of time. I ate lunch at the hotel restaurant, where the waiters already knew me by name and treated me like royalty. In the afternoon, I went to the spa for massages that melted away decades of tension accumulated in my shoulders. But mostly, I planned. I sat down with my new laptop. I bought one on the second day, along with an entire wardrobe of stylish clothes, and researched lawyers, financial advisors, and real estate agents. I made lists of what I would do with the money, how much I would donate, how I would invest, where I would live. I didn't turn on my phone once. I left it turned off in the nightstand drawer, silent and forgotten. I knew I was exploding with messages and calls, but I wasn't ready yet. I needed these days to strengthen myself, for the old, broken Dorothy to heal completely before facing Marcus and Linda. On the afternoon of the third day, Wednesday, I was lying in the hot tub on my private balcony. The September sun was beginning to set, painting the sky orange. I held a glass of Moet en Chandon, the hotel's most expensive champagne, and felt the bubbles from the hot tub massaging my tired back. The suite's TV was tuned to the local news, the volume loud enough for me to hear from the balcony. I had my eyes closed, almost asleep from being so relaxed, when I heard the presenter say, "And now, the news that has all of Arizona in suspense." I opened my eyes lazily. His voice continued, now with more enthusiasm. A Phoenix woman single-handedly won the $47 million Powerball jackpot in last week's drawing. My heart raced. I set aside the glass and stepped out of the tub, quickly wrapping myself in a soft robe. I ran into the suite, dripping water onto the marble floor, and stopped in front of the TV. The screen showed the Powerball logo and the winning numbers: 7, 14, 23, 35, 48, Powerball 11. My numbers. A shiver ran down my spine. The Arizona Lottery confirmed today that the winning ticket was sold at a Shell station on Camelback Road in Phoenix, continued the host, a middle-aged man with perfectly coiffed hair. What makes this story even more intriguing is that the winner, whose identity is being kept confidential for now, has already claimed her prize. The screen changed to a photo. My photo. The one they'd taken at the lottery office 3 days ago. There I was, holding that giant cardboard check, smiling with a glint in my eye I barely recognized. I was wearing my usual simple clothes, my gray hair a little disheveled, but my smile was genuine, radiant, victorious. While the Arizona lottery hasn't released the winner's name yet, they did share this exclusive photo, the host said. The lucky lady opted to receive the entire amount at once, resulting in approximately $28 million after taxes. The camera returned to the studio, where a blonde presenter joined her colleague. John, what do we know about this mystery woman? Well, Sarah, very little. The lottery confirmed only that she is a Phoenix resident, over 60, and has asked for privacy during this transition period. They expect to release her full name in the coming days, as required by Arizona law. Imagine waking up one day and finding out you're a multimillionaire. Sarah laughed, shaking her head. That lady certainly got lucky. Experts are already speculating about who she might be. Social media is in a frenzy trying to identify her from her photo. Absolutely, John agreed. If you know this woman or have information about the mysterious Phoenix winner, please contact us through our website. The report shifted to another topic, but I stood there, paralyzed, staring at the TV. My picture was on the television, on every channel, probably, on social media. The news had finally exploded. Marcus and Linda would see this. If they hadn't seen it already, they would in the next few hours. And the photo, would they recognize me? It was from a different angle. The lighting was different. I was smiling in a way I hadn't in years. But still, it was me, my bone structure, my eyes, the shape of my face. With trembling hands, I walked to the drawer where I'd left my phone. 3 days off, 3 days of peace. I took a deep breath, mentally preparing myself, and pressed the power button. The device vibrated for a full minute as notifications flooded in. The screen lit up, and what I saw made me gasp. 89 missed calls, 127 text messages, 43 voice messages. I sat on the edge of the bed, still wrapped in my wet robe, and began scrolling through the call log. Marcus, 47 calls. Linda, 52 calls. Unknown numbers. Over a dozen, probably reporters who had somehow gotten my number. I opened the text messages, starting with the oldest. The first was from Marcus, sent on Monday afternoon, just hours after I'd left home. Mom, where are you? The nursing home van passed by and you weren't here. Call immediately. The second, 2 hours later. Mom, this isn't funny. We need to know where you are. It's our responsibility. Responsibility. The word made me laugh bitterly. How convenient to discover they had responsibility for me after they'd kicked me out. Linda's messages began Tuesday morning. Mom, are you okay? We can't find you. Please call us. Mom, we're worried. You didn't go to Green Valley. Where are you? I kept scrolling, watching the messages get progressively more desperate throughout Tuesday and Wednesday. And then, Wednesday afternoon, probably right after the news had aired, the tone changed completely. Marcus, 3:23 p.m. Mom, did you won the lottery? Linda, 3:31 p.m. Mom, we just saw the news. That woman in the picture, is that you? Please answer the phone. Marcus, 3:45 p.m. Mom, if that winner is you, we need to talk urgently. This affects the whole family. Linda, 4:02 p.m. Mom, please, I know we're having problems, but you're my mom. I need to talk to you about this lottery. Marcus, 4:30 p.m. Mom, about Monday. It was a terrible misunderstanding. We were stressed. You know we love you. Call us. The messages continued, each one more pathetic than the last. I scrolled down to the most recent, sent less than an hour ago. Linda, 5:15 p.m. Mom, I saw your picture on TV. I knew it was you. Mom, we need to get together as a family and discuss this. You can't make important decisions alone. Marcus, 5:40 p.m. Mom, I spoke to a lawyer. He said we can challenge any decision you make without consulting your family. You're not thinking straight. Go home. Challenge my decisions. Go home. Their audacity left me speechless for a moment, and then I started laughing. a laugh that started low and grew louder until it echoed throughout the luxurious suite. I laughed so hard that tears rolled down my face. They had thrown me away like trash. They told me I was a burden, worthless, and that I needed to go to a nursing home. And now, 3 days later, they found out I'd won $47 million, and suddenly I was family again. Suddenly, they loved me. Suddenly, I couldn't make decisions for myself. On Thursday morning, the 4th day of my new life, I woke with that strange feeling that something was about to happen. I ordered my usual breakfast, eggs Benedict, fresh fruit, Colombian coffee, and ate slowly on the porch, watching the sun rise over the Camelback Mountains. The sky was clear, a deep blue that promised a warm day, but I could feel a storm approaching. At 10 in the morning, my cell phone rang. It was an unknown number. Normally I wouldn't answer, but something told me to pick it up. Hello? Mrs. Harrison? It was Michael, the hotel manager. His voice, usually so confident and professional, sounded strained. I'm sorry to bother you, but we have a situation here at the front desk. My stomach clenched. I already knew. Let me guess. A man and a woman asking for me. Yes, ma'am. They claim to be your son and daughter. They're being quite insistent. We told them we can't confirm if we have a guest by that name without their permission, but they refuse to leave. Should I call security? I took a deep breath. Part of me wanted to say yes, to have security kick them out like they kicked me out. But another part, the part that had spent the last 3 days planning this exact moment, knew it was time to face the situation head on. No, Michael. Thank you. I'll be down in 15 minutes. Please ask them to wait in the lobby. Are you sure, Mrs. Harrison? I can have them wait outside if you prefer. No, let them in, but please keep security nearby, discreetly. Absolutely. We'll be watching. I hung up the phone and stood in the middle of the suite, my heart pounding. Then I walked to the closet where I'd hung my new clothes. I ran my fingers over the expensive fabrics, silks, linens, cashmere, so different from the simple, all-worn clothes I'd worn before. I chose carefully. A perfectly tailored pair of beige trousers costing $500. A cream silk blouse with delicate details costing $300. A navy blue Italian blazer costing $800. Soft leather shoes that molded to my feet like gloves. I put on my grandmother's pearl necklace, the only piece of jewelry I had brought from home, and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back at me wasn't the Dorothy Marcus and Linda had thrown out 4 days ago. This Dorothy stood straight, shoulders back, chin high. Her eyes betrayed no fear or insecurity, but cold determination. Her clothes screamed success and independence. Even my hair looked different. I'd gone to the hotel salon the day before and had gotten a modern cut, adding subtle highlights to soften the gray. I picked up my new bag, a Michael Kors, discreet but elegant, and I checked the contents. My cell phone, wallet, the bank card with access to the account that would soon have $28 million, and a copy of the lottery documents Richard Patterson had given me. I was prepared. Before I left, I called Thomas Whitmore, the lawyer I'd hired 2 days earlier. He answered on the second ring. Mrs. Harrison, good morning. How may I help you? Thomas, they found me, my children. They're here at the hotel. There was a brief pause. I see. Do you want me to come over? No, not yet, but keep your phone nearby. If I call, I need you to come right away. Of course. And Mrs. Harrison, remember what we talked about. You have no legal obligation to share anything with them. The money is completely yours. They have no right to anything unless you decide to give it to them. I know, Thomas. Thank you. I hung up, took 3 deep breaths, a self-control technique a nurse friend taught me decades ago, and left the suite. The hallway was quiet, my shoes making a soft sound on the thick carpet. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the ground floor button. As I descended, I watched my reflection in the mirrored doors. You are strong, I whispered to myself. You deserve respect. Don't let them put you down. The doors opened, and I walked into the lobby. I spotted them immediately. Marcus and Linda were near the reception desk. Marcus pacing back and forth like a caged lion, Linda sitting in a leather armchair, nervously fiddling with her phone. They both looked tired, with dark circles under their eyes and wrinkled clothes. They clearly hadn't slept well. Michael saw me first and gave me a discreet wave. I nodded subtly in thanks. He said something into the intercom, probably alerting security, and watched intently. I took another deep breath and walked toward them, my steps firm and purposeful on the marble floor. It was Linda who saw me first. She looked up from her phone, her mouth falling open slightly. She nudged Marcus urgently, pointing in my direction. "Mom!" he exclaimed too loudly, advancing toward me with open arms. "What a relief to find you! We were so worried!" I stopped 10 feet away, keeping my expression neutral. Marcus hesitated, realizing I wasn't going to hug him back, and let his arms fall awkwardly. Linda jumped up from her chair and ran to me, her eyes shining with tears that looked suspiciously staged. "Mom! Oh, Mom! Thank God you're okay!" She tried to hug me, her arms outstretched, her voice filled with such fake emotion that even the decorative plants in the lobby probably noticed. I took a step back, keeping my distance. "Beautiful?" I said, my voice calm and cold as ice. "Marcus." Linda's smile faltered. She blinked, fake tears still clinging to her lashes. "Mom, what? Why are you being like this? It was all a terrible misunderstanding. A moment of stress." "Wasn't that it, Marcus?" "Exactly," Marcus agreed quickly, stepping forward. "Mom, we were under so much pressure. The bills, the work, everything. We weren't thinking straight. But you're our mom. We'll always be a family. You know that, don't you?" I stared at them in silence for a long moment. I studied their faces, faces I knew better than my own, faces I'd kissed as babies, faces I'd watched grow, mature, and now harden with barely concealed greed. "A family," I repeated slowly. "Interesting you should use that word now." Marcus and Linda exchanged a quick glance. There was nervousness there, and something else. Calculation. They were planning their strategy, deciding how to manipulate me. "Mom, please," Linda said, her voice taking on a tearful tone. "We know we messed up, but we're your children. We've always been close. Remember all the good things? Remember when we were little and you made us pancakes every Sunday? Remember the family trips? We're a family, Mom. Families make mistakes, but they forgive each other." "Pancakes," I said, and a dry laugh escaped my lips. "You remember pancakes? What a selective memory you have, Linda." "Mom," Marcus tried to interrupt, but I held up my hand, silencing him. "Let me refresh your memory," I continued, my voice still calm but gaining a steely edge. "Do you remember what happened last Monday? Remember what you said to me?" Linda bit her lower lip, her eyes drifting to the floor. Marcus at least had the decency to look uncomfortable for a second before resetting his mask. "Mom, we already apologize," he began. "No, you didn't," I cut him off. "You haven't said sorry once since you got here. You said it was a misunderstanding, that you were stressed, but you didn't say you were sorry. You didn't say you were wrong." The lobby was quiet. I noticed that some guests and staff had stopped what they were doing and were discreetly observing. Michael stood behind the counter, attentive. 2 security guards I hadn't noticed before were strategically positioned near the marble columns. "So let's get one thing straight," I continued, stepping forward, my voice low but firm. "You didn't find me because you were worried about my well-being. You found me because you saw the news on TV. You saw that photo of the lottery winner and thought, could that be her?" Marcus's face turned red. Linda opened her mouth to protest, but I held up my hand again. "Don't insult me by lying. I saw your messages. I saw how the tone completely changed after the news aired. Before that, you were angry because I hadn't gone to the nursing home you chose for me. Then, suddenly, I was dear mother again. Suddenly, you loved me. Suddenly, I was family. Mom, it's not like that." Linda tried, but her voice was weak, lacking conviction. Then Marcus blinked, swallowed, and that fake smile returned, wider this time, almost manic. "Mom, that's amazing. Wonderful. You deserve it so much." He stepped forward, his arms opening wide again for a hug. "We need to celebrate. This is a blessing for the whole family." "A blessing to the whole family," I repeated, letting the words hang in the air like poisonous smoke. "How interesting." Linda joined him, the transformation in her face almost comical. Her eyes wide, a huge smile that didn't reach her eyes, her hands clasped together as if in prayer. "Mom, I'm so happy for you. So happy. This changes everything. You'll never have to worry about anything again." "You're right," I said calmly. "I'll never worry about anything again, but not for the reasons you think." Marcus frowned, confusion flashing across his face before he masked it. "Mom, what do you mean?" Instead of answering, I walked to one of the emerald green velvet armchairs that decorated the lobby, furniture so luxurious it probably cost more than all the furniture in my old house. I sat down carefully, crossed my legs elegantly, and smoothed my tailored pants. The light from the crystal chandelier above me created a golden halo, and I felt, for the first time in my life, like a queen on her throne. Marcus and Linda remained standing, uncomfortable, unsure whether they should sit down too or stay there, like subjects waiting for orders from the monarch. "Have a seat," I said, gesturing to the chairs across from mine. It wasn't an invitation. It was an order. They complied quickly, sitting on the edge of their seats, their postures tense and anxious. Linda placed her bag on her lap and held it like a lifeline. Marcus leaned forward, elbows on his knees, trying to look casual but failing miserably. I let the silence stretch on, watching them squirm. I'd learned something valuable these past few days. Silence is power, and I had all the time in the world. Finally, it was Marcus who broke down first. "Mom, about Monday." He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I recognized from his childhood. "We were stressed. Work has been hell. Linda just lost an important client. And I've been having financial problems. We didn't think straight. It was a terrible mistake. The worst mistake we've ever made." "It was more than a mistake," Linda amended quickly, her words coming out in a desperate torrent. "It was cruel. It was horrible. We were monsters, Mom. I know that now. I haven't slept well since Monday. I kept thinking about you, alone, not knowing where you were, if you were okay, if you were safe." "Really?" I asked, arching an eyebrow. "You were worried about my safety. How curious. Because on Monday, when you kicked me out of my own house, you didn't seem too concerned about where I would sleep that night." Linda blushed. "Mom, the nursing home was a convenient solution for you," I interrupted, my voice sharp as glass. "A way to get rid of me guilt-free. Look, we even found a place for her. What thoughtful children we are. Did you think you were doing me a favor?" "No, it wasn't like that," Marcus tried, but his voice was weak. "It was exactly like that," I said. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what I was about to say. "Do you know what I've learned these past few days?" They looked at me, expectant, hopeful, as if I were going to say something that would absolve them, that would make things easier. "I've learned that real family doesn't abandon you when you need it most," I continued, each word weighted and deliberate. "Real family doesn't look at you and see only expenses. Real family doesn't calculate your worth based on how much you can still contribute financially." "Mom, we don't," Linda began, but I held up my hand, silencing her. "You threw me out, thinking I had nothing more to offer," I said, my voice steady, without a tremor. "You said I was dead weight, that I was useless. Do you remember those words, Marcus?" Marcus went pale, his eyes dropped to the floor, unable to look at me. I didn't mean—" "You meant exactly what you said," I cut him off. "Don't try to rewrite history now. You both looked at me, the woman who dedicated her entire life to you, who worked 2 jobs to pay for your college tuition, who stayed up all night when you were sick, who gave up her own dreams to make sure you had yours, and decided I wasn't worth it anymore." Linda started crying for real now. Not the fake tears from before, but genuine sobs that shook her shoulders. "Mom, please, we're not those people. We made a terrible mistake, but we're your children. You raised us better than this." "I raised you better than that," I agreed, a deep sadness in my voice. "And that's why what you did hurts so much. Because I know I taught you different values. I taught you loyalty, compassion, caring for the most vulnerable. Apparently, those lessons didn't stick." "They caught it," Marcus insisted, finally looking me in the eye. Mom, we're good people who made a horrible mistake in a moment of weakness. You can come home. We can fix this. We'll take care of you forever. You'll never have to worry about anything again." "Take care of me forever," I repeated slowly. "With what money, Marcus? With the money I won in the lottery." The silence returned, heavier this time. Marcus and Linda looked at each other, and I saw the exact moment they realized I'd seen right through them, that I knew exactly what they were doing. "It's not like that, Mom," Linda said, but her voice was flat. "We want to take care of you because we love you. Money doesn't matter." I started laughing. I couldn't help it. A low laugh that grew until it echoed through the marble lobby. Several guests turned to look, but I didn't care. It was the most liberating laugh I'd ever had. "Money doesn't matter," I managed to say between laughs. "Linda, on Monday, you literally told me I was just an expense. You made a spreadsheet of my expenses. Marcus told me I was a financial burden. But now that they found out I have $47 million, money doesn't matter." "Mom," Marcus tried again, but I leaned forward, my laughter fading, replaced by an expression of cold determination. "Let me tell you what's going to happen now," I said, and my voice was so calm it was almost frightening. "You're going to get up, you're going to leave this hotel, and you're going to go back to that house, my house, the one you manipulated me into moving, and you're going to live your lives." "Mom, no," Linda began, panic clear in her voice. "And I continued, as if she hadn't spoken. "I'm going to live my life. A life that doesn't include you." The shock on their faces was absolute. Marcus went white as a sheet. Linda let out a strangled sound, half sob, half scream. "You can't be serious," Marcus said, his voice hoarse. "We're your family. We're all you have." "You were all I had," I corrected, "but you made it very clear on Monday. I don't have you. You discarded me. And now you're going to have to live with that decision." "Mom, please!" Linda was begging now, on her knees on the marble floor, her hands gripping the hem of my pants. "Don't do this. We're your children. You can't cut us out of your life over one mistake." I looked at her, my daughter, kneeling on the floor begging, and I felt nothing. Where there had once been unconditional love, now there was only a cold emptiness. They had killed that love with their cruel words and selfish actions. "Didn't you cut me out of your lives for one mistake?" I asked softly. "Didn't you throw me away like trash? The difference, Linda, is that I'm being honest about it. I'm not pretending I still love you when I clearly don't anymore. I'm not going to lie and say we can fix this when I know you just want my money." "We don't want your money," Marcus shouted, standing up. His face was red with anger and desperation. "We want our mother back." "Do you?" I said, standing up too, facing him. "So where were you the last 6 months? When I called 10 times and you didn't call back? When I asked for help changing a light bulb and you were busy? When I mentioned being lonely and you changed the subject?" Marcus opened his mouth, but no sound came out. There was no answer to that, and he knew it. "You want to know the truth?" I continued, feeling decades of hurt finally breaking free. "I wasn't a mother to you for a long time. I was a convenience, someone to pay bills when you needed it, someone to blame when things went wrong, someone to take care of the house while you lived your lives. And when even that became too inconvenient, you discarded me." "That's not true," Linda cried, still on her knees. "We loved you." "We loved you. Did you love them?" I asked. arching an eyebrow. Interesting tense, Linda. Past. Have you accepted that this love is over? She paled, realizing her mistake. I meant loved, present. We love you, Mom. I shook my head slowly. No, you don't. You love the idea of having access to $47 million. Big difference. Marcus took a menacing step toward me, and I instantly saw two security guards move from the shadows, strategically positioning themselves. Michael was also alert behind the counter, his phone in hand. Marcus noticed and stopped, his hands curling into fists. Are you serious? Are you really cutting us out of your life because of money? No, I said calmly. I'm cutting you out of my life because you've shown me who you really are. Money just made that obvious. You kicked me out when you thought I had nothing. Now you want to come back because you found out I have everything. That's not love. That's greed. Marcus was still standing there, his hands shaking with pent-up anger, when I turned and walked calmly to the coffee table between the armchairs. I'd left my Michael Kors bag there, ready for this moment. I unzipped the gold clasp with steady fingers, no tremors at all, and pulled out a thick envelope made of high-quality cream paper. Since we're having this conversation, I said, sitting back down in the velvet chair, crossing my legs again, there are a few things you need to know. Linda rose from the floor, brushing the knees of her pants off, her face tear-stained and her mascara smeared. Marcus stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the envelope in my hands like a predator focused on prey. What is it? He asked, his voice strained. This, I said, taking the papers out of the envelope and holding them so that we could both see the letterhead at the top. Whitmore and Associates, attorneys at law, is my will. My updated will, to be precise. The silence that followed was different from the previous ones. This one was charged with a dangerous electric tension. I could see Marcus calculating, his accountant's brain processing the implications. Will? Linda repeated, her voice high-pitched. Mom, why are you talking about the will? You're okay, aren't you? I'm perfectly fine, I replied. Better than I've been in years, in fact. But at 62, with a considerable fortune, it's prudent to have my affairs in order. My lawyer, Thomas Whitmore, advised me to update my will immediately, and I agreed. Marcus leaned closer, trying to read the documents upside down. And? What does this will say? He smiled, a small, cold, but genuine smile. He says you won't see a single cent of that fortune. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. Linda let out a muffled scream, clapping her hand over her mouth. Marcus stood completely still, his face turning various shades of red as he processed what I'd said. What? He finally managed to say, the word coming out as a growl. It's all here, I said, flipping through the papers calmly. All the money, the net $28.4 million, plus any future investment income, will be divided among carefully selected charities. 50% will go to a fund I created specifically to help elderly people abandoned in nursing homes. Elderly people whose families have forgotten them, discarded them, treated them as burdens. Linda started crying again, but I continued, relentless. 20% will go to St. Mary's Hospital, where I worked for 30 years as a nurse. They will use the money to create scholarships for nurses from low-income families. 20% will go to shelters for women experiencing domestic violence. And the remaining 10% will be divided among several smaller organizations, food banks, homeless shelters, adult literacy programs. You can't do this, Marcus snapped, his voice echoing through the lobby. Several guests turned to look, but he didn't seem to notice or care. This money is ours. We're your children, your only children. You can't disinherit us. Yes, I can, I replied calmly. And I already have. Thomas explained Arizona law very clearly to me. There's nothing that requires someone to leave an inheritance to adult children. I have complete and total freedom to dispose of my assets as I see fit. But we're your family, Linda screamed, her voice rising in hysteria. You can't give all our money to strangers. It's not your money, I said, every word enunciated with crystal clarity. It never was. It's my money. I bought the ticket. I won the lottery. I claimed the prize. You have absolutely no right to it. Marcus began pacing like a caged animal, his hands in his hair. This is crazy. You're being manipulated. This lawyer is taking advantage of you. Thomas Whitmore is one of the most respected lawyers in Arizona, I said. He's not taking advantage of anyone. In fact, he advised me exactly what to do in situations like this, situations where family members appear out of nowhere after learning about a fortune. We didn't just appear out of nowhere, Linda protested. We're your children. We've always been your children. You did show up, I corrected. On Monday, they kicked me out. They said I was going to a nursing home. On Wednesday, after seeing the news on TV, they suddenly remembered I was your mother. That's the definition of showing up out of nowhere. Marcus stopped walking and stared at me, and there was something dangerous in his eyes now. You're making a mistake, he said, his voice low and menacing. A mistake you'll regret. The security guards immediately approached, but I held up my hand, indicating I was okay. Is that a threat, Marcus? I asked, arching an eyebrow. He seemed to realize he'd gone too far and backed away. No, of course not. Mom, you're not thinking straight. You've just been through a trauma. We were horrible to you, I admit, but you're making important decisions when you're emotionally shaken. That's not wise. On the contrary, I said, for the first time in decades, I'm thinking with complete clarity. Do you know why I feel so at peace with this decision? They didn't answer. They just looked at me with expressions of mixed anger and despair. Because in the last 4 days, I continued, I've had time to reflect on my life, on all the choices I've made, on all the sacrifices. And I realized I spent 62 years living for you. I worked 2 jobs to pay for your college. I gave up my marriage. Your father and I grew apart because I was always working to support you. I gave up my own dreams, my own happiness, all to ensure you had a better life. I paused, feeling the weight of all those decades. And in the end, when I finally needed you, you threw me away like trash. So I decided that the next few years of my life, however many they may be, I'm going to live for myself. And I'm going to use my money to help people who really need it. People who have no one, just like I thought I had no one on Monday. Mom, please, Linda begged, moving closer to me again. We can change. We can be better. Just give us a chance to prove it. They've had their whole lives of chances, I replied. And the first time they really tested me, they failed. I won't give them another chance to hurt me. So that's it, Marcus said, and his voice was hollow now, defeated. Are you really going to cut us out of your life? Your own family? You cut me off first, I said simply. I'm just formalizing what you've already done. There was a long moment of silence. Linda was crying silently, but I could see they were tears of anger and frustration now, not genuine sadness. Marcus stared at the floor, his jaw clenched, clearly trying to control his anger. Finally, I put the papers back in the envelope and put them in my bag. I got up from the chair and smoothed my clothes, preparing for the final blow. Now, I said, walking toward the elevators, you're going to leave this hotel. What about the house in Phoenix? They looked up, a spark of hope emerging in their eyes. The house, the 4-bedroom house Robert and I had bought in 1990, where we had raised our children, where Marcus had manipulated me into transferring it into his name. You can have her, I said, and saw relief wash over their faces. I consider it a small price to pay for the lesson I've learned about you. Their hope turned to confusion. Because I continued, pressing the elevator button, am buying a new mansion, a huge, beautiful house in one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in Scottsdale. A house with guest rooms for friends, real friends, people who really care about me. A house with huge gardens, a pool, maybe even a tennis court. A house where I'll host people who really love me for dinners, parties, celebrations. The elevator door opened. I stepped inside and turned to face them one last time. And you, I said, my voice firm and final, are not included. You will never be welcome in that house. You will never meet my new friends. You will never be part of my new life. You had your chance to be a part of my story, and you chose to write me out of it. Now I will return the favor. Mom, no. Linda started to run towards the elevator, but the security guards gently held her back. Goodbye, Marcus. Goodbye, Linda, I said, and pressed the button to close the doors. Enjoy the house. That's all you'll get of me. The doors began to close. The last thing I saw were their faces, Marcus red with rage, Linda pale with shock, as reality finally sank in. They had lost everything, and not because of the money, but because they had lost me. The doors closed completely, and the elevator began its gentle ascent. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. My heart was pounding, adrenaline coursing through my veins, but at the same time, I felt a deep calm settle in my chest. It was done. It was over. I closed that chapter of my life definitively and irrevocably. When the elevator doors opened on my floor, I walked down the hall to my suite. I swiped my card, entered, and closed the door behind me. For a long moment, I stood there, just breathing. Suddenly, tears fell from my eyes. I knew that deep down I loved them very much, but they needed to be taught a lesson. And who knows, maybe the time will bring us closer. Then, slowly, a smile began to form on my face. It started small, but grew until I was smiling so widely my cheeks hurt. I began to laugh, a loud, free, liberating laugh that echoed through the empty suite. It wasn't just about the money. It was about dignity. It was about respect. It was about finally putting myself first. Dorothy Harrison had died on Monday, when she was thrown out of her own home, but a new Dorothy had been born, a Dorothy who knew her worth, who wouldn't accept being treated as less than she deserved, who had the courage to cut toxic ties, even when those ties were with her own children. I picked up my cell phone and called Thomas Whitmore. "Mrs. Harrison," he answered immediately. "How was it?" "It was perfect," I said, my voice firm, strong. "They know about the will. They know they won't get anything. And Thomas, thank you. Thank you for giving me the tools to protect myself." "It was a pleasure, Mrs. Harrison. Now what? What are your plans?" I looked to the horizon, at all the possibilities stretching out before me like a red carpet. "Now," I said, "I will begin to live."